Welcome, everyone, to the NewVision OldWays podcast, a greatly ambitious journey of discovery where we can all learn to live better, mentally healthier, and more fulfilling lives. If you're just discovering us, feel free to go back and take the journey from the beginning. And if you're already a NewVision OldWays fan, welcome back and enjoy season
7.
And now, here is your host, Tony Marinaccio.
You are listening to NewVision OldWays, the podcast that explores timeless wisdom for the modern mind in a fun, relaxed, and most important, interactive way with you, the listener. I am your host, Tony Marinaccio, and let's get the episode started. Welcome, Visioneers, to another great episode of the NewVision OldWays podcast. And as the introduction always says, I am Tony Marinaccio, and I do have to say, I took a bit of an extended break. Way longer than I usually do. And I was doing what so many of us do, getting caught up with and getting into spring. And it was a long winter here in the great Western New York area. And when the spring actually sprung into action, it was go time. It took a while, and I had a few adventures along the way, and now I'm back into the thing I truly love to do, which is writing and giving the listeners the best that I can. Sometimes a little break in the action is very needed to shake out those cobwebs, and shake them out, I certainly did. So with all of that in mind, and after all that time, what is on tap for today? Well, I want to talk about something that has divided humanity for a very long time. The idea that we must choose between science and spirituality. That somehow, if you believe in science, you must reject mystery, meaning, intuition, or even God. And on the other side, if you embrace spirituality, you must reject evidence and logic or rational thought. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that these two worlds are enemies. But what if they were never meant to be enemies at all? What if science and spirituality are actually exploring the same reality, but just from different directions? If you go back and listen to episode 65, I discussed the connection between water, spirituality, and God. And I received many responses about that episode, encouraging me to dig even deeper into that type of thought process. And I will say, it is a difficult area to tackle because spirituality is such a personal thing. And there are so many takes on this subject that it is almost impossible to be truly inclusive of everyone's personal journey. So what came to mind was the struggle we have been seeing between science-led beliefs and spiritual-led beliefs, and the idea that we are somehow not to mix the two together. But as usual, here at NewVision OldWays, I tend to take the subjects like this and bring a new vision to it. See what I did there? So yes, you guessed it, Visioneers. There is no better time than right now to explore that new vision with episode 69, Science and Spirituality, Kindred Spirits, after all.
Can science and spirituality connect? Quantum physics might just hold the key. Quantum spirituality explores the parallels between the mysterious world of quantum mechanics and ancient spiritual beliefs. For instance, quantum entanglement reveals that particles can influence each other instantly, no matter the distance, a concept strikingly similar to the idea of universal oneness found in many spiritual traditions. Could this be science proving our interconnectedness? Or are we simply projecting meaning onto the mysteries of the quantum world? What do you think?
And yes, what do you think? And I'd love to find out what you think before this episode and what you think after this episode. And you know what? Let's break it down right now. Spiritual science is an exploratory framework that bridges the gap between material reality, or materialism, and inner conscious experience. Core tenets focus on inner development, the nature of consciousness, and the interconnectedness of all things. Unlike strict materialism, which views the mind as a byproduct of the brain, spiritual science shows us that consciousness is the foundation of reality. And you know, when I was younger, I think I unconsciously believed this split too. Science was presented as facts, certainty, and hard evidence, and spirituality was presented as faith, emotion, and things you just believe. One was supposedly objective and the other subjective. One measured the physical world, the other dealt with the invisible world. But the older I get, the more I realize that reality itself may not be nearly as separated as we think it is. In fact, some of the deepest scientific discoveries in human history have actually made reality stranger, more mysterious, and more interconnected than ever before. I have spoken many times about neuroplasticity, the fact that our thoughts can physically change the wiring in our brains. We are just beginning to understand how this phenomena can actually happen, or how we even have the ability to be able to do it. And think about this for a moment. Science tells us that everything in the universe, your body, your thoughts, the ocean, the stars, trees, music, memories, everything is made from energy vibrating at different frequencies. Your body is not solid in the way that it appears. In fact, it is about 70% water, as we discussed in that episode 65. At the atomic level, you are mostly empty space held together by invisible forces. That's not spirituality talking, that's physics. Quantum physics shattered the old mechanical worldview that saw the universe as some giant, predictable machine. Suddenly, scientists themselves were staring into a reality that behaved almost like consciousness was involved in the process. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying quantum physics proves spirituality. A lot of people misuse science to make exaggerated claims. Easy case in point, global warming and the impending doom we are all facing. The world will end soon. Well, that's been going on for decades and the world hasn't ended, so here we are. But what I am saying is this: the deeper science goes, the more mystery it uncovers. And maybe humility is the proper response to that mystery, not arrogance and manipulation that we see all the time. Because for centuries, humanity acted as though science would eventually explain absolutely everything. Yet the closer we look, the more we realize how little we actually know. And you know what? Take consciousness itself. Science can map brain activity. It can observe neurons firing. It can study chemical reactions. But one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in existence remains this simple question: why are we conscious at all? Why does awareness exist? Why do we experience love, beauty, intuition, meaning, grief, transcendence, or the feeling that something sacred exists beyond survival? Science can measure parts of the process, but it still struggles to explain the experience itself. And maybe that matters more than we realize. Spiritual traditions across thousands of years have all pointed towards similar ideas. Buddhism talks about interconnectedness. Christianity speaks about spirit and transformation. Taoism talks about harmony and flow. Hindu traditions speak about consciousness as fundamental to reality itself. And indigenous traditions viewed nature as alive and sacred long before environmental science began warning us that separating ourselves from nature was destroying us. Different languages, different symbols, but often pointing toward the similar truths. And that's the real bridge between science and spirituality: observation. At its core, science is observation. Spirituality, at its best, is also observation. Science observes the outer world. Spirituality observes the inner world. Science studies matter. Spirituality studies meaning. Science asks, how does this work? Spirituality asks, why does this matter? We need both questions each and every time. I think one of the biggest problems in modern culture is that we've become technologically advanced while becoming spiritually malnourished. We have infinite information, but very little wisdom. I think most of us can easily agree on that. We can communicate instantly with people across the globe, yet many people feel more isolated than ever. We know how to manipulate dopamine, attention, algorithms, and consumer behavior. But many people no longer know how to sit quietly with themselves. We have built machines that can simulate human conversations, but many humans no longer know how to truly connect soul to soul with another person. And this is where spiritual science becomes important. not blind belief, not anti-science conspiracy thinking, but a willingness to acknowledge that human beings are more than biological machines consuming products until death. There is something happening inside human consciousness that deserves exploration with both rationality and reverence. Think about the placebo effect for a moment. A person believes they are healing, and sometimes the body begins responding as if healing is occurring. The mind affecting the body, stress creating illness, meditation measurably changing the brain, gratitude affecting hormone levels, chronic anger affecting the nervous system, trauma embedded itself physically into the body. Even mainstream medicine increasingly acknowledges the mind-body connection that ancient traditions understood intuitively thousands of years ago. What fascinates me is how often ancient wisdom and modern science eventually shake hands after centuries of pretending they were enemies. Breathwork, once viewed as mysterious nonsense, now neuroscience studies its effects on anxiety and the nervous system. Meditation was once dismissed by many in the West. Now hospitals and therapists regularly recommend it. Fasting existed in spiritual traditions forever. Now science studies autophagy and metabolic health. And autophagy is the process of cellular maintenance that supports the body's ability to clear internal waste efficiently. And it has a lot to do with aging and energy levels. And at a different level, nature immersion was a spiritual practice for many ancient peoples. Now research confirms its effects on mental health and stress reduction. Looking back to explain the future, a new vision from an old way. Looks to me like humanity made a mistake when it separated knowledge into rigid categories. Maybe wisdom requires integration. Maybe truth is too large to fit inside one discipline. I also think that many people fear spirituality because they associate it with dogma, manipulation, cults, or blind obedience. And honestly, sometimes that fear can be justified. Human beings have abused spirituality throughout history. For instance, take the David Koresh Waco tragedy, where blind faith in a pretend God led to unnecessary death for many. But human beings have also abused science. Science gave us medicine, but it also gave us nuclear weapons. Technology connects us, but it also manipulates us. Neither science nor spirituality is automatically moral. Human consciousness determines how these tools are used. And perhaps this is the real conversation we need to have. What kind of consciousness is guiding our civilization? Because intelligence without wisdom can become dangerous. Knowledge without ethics can become destructive. And we can engineer machines, alter genetics, and build artificial intelligence, but if human beings remain spiritually empty, angry, addicted, fearful, and disconnected from meaning, then technology alone will certainly not save us. There's an old idea found in many traditions that says the outer world reflects the inner world. And honestly, look around. Anxiety, division, manufactured outrage, addiction, distraction, loneliness, nihilism. We have built a society obsessed with external achievement while neglecting internal development. We train people for careers, but not for meaning. We teach people how to consume, but not how to understand themselves. Then we reward productivity, but rarely wisdom. I believe the future may belong to people capable of integrating both worlds. People who can appreciate science without becoming spiritually numb, and appreciate spirituality without abandoning rational thinking. We do not have to choose between intelligence and wonder. We do not have to choose between evidence and meaning. Maybe real maturity is learning how to hold on to both. Albert Einstein once said, "Science without religion is lame. Religion without science is blind." And whether you agree with every part of that statement or not, I think there's tremendous wisdom in the idea that human understanding becomes distorted when one side completely rejects the other. Sound familiar? Because at the end of the day, science can tell us how stars form, but spirituality asks us why beauty moves us when we look at them. Science can explain brain chemistry during love, but chemistry alone does not capture what it feels like to hold your child, lose someone you love, or experience profound forgiveness. Science can measure sound frequencies, but it cannot fully explain why music can make someone cry. There are dimensions of human existence that remain deeply experiential. And that's where humility becomes important again. Wisdom begins when we stop pretending we fully understand reality. Maybe both the scientist staring through the telescope and the monk sitting silently in meditation are responding to the same mystery, but in different ways. I think the danger is not science, and the danger is not spirituality. The danger is certainty. The danger is ego convincing us we already know everything, because once curiosity dies, growth dies with it.
Quantum physics explains spiritual awakening better than any religion. When Schrödinger developed his famous equation in 1925, he unwittingly created the mathematical foundation for what shamans have known for thousands of years. Here's the mind-blowing part. Both quantum physics and spiritual awakening recognize that consciousness creates reality. It's not just philosophical. It's scientifically proven through quantum superposition, where particles exist in multiple states until observed. Every spiritual tradition talks about oneness, but quantum entanglement literally proves it. Two particles can instantly affect each other regardless of distance. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. Sound familiar to telepathy or prayer? The observer effect in physics shows that particles behave differently when watched. This perfectly mirrors the spiritual concept that our attention shapes our reality. Ancient practices like meditation are essentially controlling where we place our quantum observation. Shamans enter altered states to access hidden information. Quantum physics explains this through quantum tunneling, where particles pass through seemingly impenetrable barriers, accessing information that shouldn't be available. The multiverse theory suggests infinite parallel realities exist simultaneously, exactly what mystics have described as different planes of existence throughout history. What's fascinating is how both quantum physicists and spiritual masters arrive at the same conclusion through completely different methods. One uses mathematics, the other uses consciousness exploration, yet they describe the same underlying reality. Spiritual awakening isn't abandoning science. It's embracing its deepest implications about the nature of consciousness and reality.
I want to go even deeper now, because this may be where science and spirituality truly begin touching the same mystery. What if consciousness is not something separated from the universe, but an expression of the universe itself? Think about that for a moment. Science tells us that everything in existence is energy, not metaphorically, literally. Every object you see, your body, your coffee cup, the microphone I'm speaking into right now, the trees outside, the stars above us, all of it is composed of vibrating fields of energy, organized into different forms. Matter itself is not as solid as it appears. Underneath the illusion of solidity is movement, vibration, frequency, invisible interaction. The atom itself is mostly space. Even the particles inside atoms behave less like tiny billiard balls and more like probabilities, waves, patterns of information. Now, spirituality, for thousands of years, has spoken in a very different language, but often pointing towards something remarkably similar. Ancient traditions spoke about spirit moving through all things. They spoke about life force, divine breath, chi, prana, soul, consciousness woven into existence itself. Different cultures used different words, but many shared the same central intuition. The universe is not dead matter. It is alive in some profound way. And maybe this is where modern humanity struggles. We inherited a worldview that treats the universe like a machine, cold, mechanical, accidental, unconscious. We are taught that consciousness somehow emerged randomly from lifeless matter, as though awareness itself was merely a chemical side effect. But even now, science cannot fully explain how unconscious particles suddenly become self-aware beings capable of love, imagination, music, morality, grief, beauty, or spiritual experience. Maybe consciousness is not an accident inside the universe. Maybe consciousness is woven into the fabric of the universe itself.
And now, Visioneers, let's take a quick break to let you know how you can support the show. By clicking on the Patreon donate link in the show notes, or by typing in patreon.com/NewVisionOldWays or at the NewVisionOldWays.com website, you can show your support by donating directly to the New Vision Old Ways podcast. These episodes take time and money to produce, and by donating what you are able to, it will allow us to grow the show and give you the best content that we can. Of course, you can cancel at any time. Remember, click on the Patreon donate link in the show notes, or by typing in patreon.com/NewVisionOldWays or at the NewVisionOldWays.com website. Hint, you are able to donate a one-time lump sum. Then, cancel right after. Options are always a good thing. Thank you, and now, back to the show.
There's an idea found in both mysticism and modern theoretical thinking that reality may be deeply interconnected beyond what our senses can perceive. Not separate objects bumping into each other, but an interconnected field expressing itself in countless forms, like waves appearing separate on the surface of the ocean while remaining part of the same ocean underneath. And honestly, when you begin thinking this way, it changes everything. Because if all things emerge from the same source, then separation itself may be partly an illusion. Your body is made from ancient star matter. The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the oxygen you breathe, these elements were forged in exploding stars billions of years ago. You are not separate from the universe. You are the universe, becoming conscious of itself for a brief moment in time. I'm going to say that again because that's very important. You are not separate from the universe. You are the universe becoming conscious of itself for a brief moment in time. That's not poetry pretending to be science. That's literally where the elements inside your body came from. Think about how incredible that is. The atoms inside you existed long before your name ever existed. Long before human civilization existed, those particles moved through stars, oceans, forests, animals, perhaps countless other forms before eventually becoming you. And someday they will continue transforming again. Energy changing form, never destroyed, only transformed. And this is where spirituality enters the conversation in a powerful way, because many spiritual traditions suggest there is something eternal moving through these temporary forms. Some call it soul, some call it spirit, some call it consciousness, some call it God, expressing itself through creation. The language changes, but the central intuition remains the same. Beneath all apparent separation exists unity. There's an ancient spiritual idea that says every particle contains the whole universe within it, that the microcosm reflects the macrocosm. As above, so below. And strangely enough, even modern science reveals patterns that echo this idea. Fractals repeat identical structures across different scales. Galaxies resemble neural networks. Rivers resemble veins. Tree branches resemble lungs. Nature continuously mirrors itself through patterns and interconnected systems. It is almost as if intelligence is embedded into reality itself. And maybe what human beings call spiritual awakening is simply remembering and acknowledging this connection. Because look at what happens when people lose their sense of connection. They become spiritually starved, isolated, addicted, angry, nihilistic. They begin treating nature like a resource instead of something sacred. They treat other human beings as objects. They consume endlessly, trying to fill a void inside themselves. Modern society often teaches us to see ourselves as disconnected individuals, competing for survival in a meaningless universe. But what if the worldview itself is creating suffering? What if healing begins when we remember that we are not disconnected from existence, but expressions of existence? You can actually feel this sometimes in certain moments in life. Standing alone beneath the stars, watching the ocean, holding your newborn child, listening to music that completely dissolves your sense of time, falling deeply in love, sitting in silence during meditation, experiencing profound grief. In those moments, the illusion of separation weakens for just a short period, and something deeper emerges, a feeling that you are connected to something infinitely larger than yourself. And that feeling is not irrational. It is recognition. Maybe human beings have always sensed that consciousness is not trapped inside isolated bodies, but participates in something greater, something interconnected, something sacred. Now, to be fair, science cannot currently prove all of this. We should be intellectually honest about that, but science also cannot disprove it. And perhaps this is where humility matters again. Because reality may be far more mysterious than either strict materialism or rigid dogma can fully explain. The deeper we study the universe, the more interconnected everything appears to become. Ecosystems, quantum entanglement, human nervous systems, emotional contagion, collective behavior, biological independence, cause and effect rippling endlessly outward. Nothing truly exists in total isolation. And we will also get into these terms more down the road for sure. But even your thoughts affect the world around you. Your emotional state changes how you treat people. That changes their emotional state, which changes how they affect others. Human beings radiate energy psychologically, emotionally, socially, even spiritually in ways we barely understand. And perhaps this is why ancient ritual traditions emphasized inner transformation so heavily, because changing yourself changes the field around you. Anger spreads, fear spreads, but so does compassion, so does courage, so does peace. Maybe spirituality and science meet at the realization that reality is relationship. Everything connected, everything influencing everything else, everything in motion. Consciousness participating in itself. And maybe soul is not something separate from the universe. Maybe soul is what the universe feels like from the inside. So perhaps spiritual science is not about proving God in a laboratory or replacing reason with blind belief. It's about recognizing that human existence is richer, stranger, and more interconnected than the world often allows us to acknowledge. It's about reuniting intellect and soul, logic and meaning, observation and awe. And honestly, that's what NewVision OldWays has always been about, taking ancient wisdom seriously without rejecting modern understanding, refusing to live inside false binaries, a logical fallacy that misrepresents a situation by presenting only two mutually exclusive options, when in reality, a broader range of alternatives exist, hence asking deeper questions, challenging assumptions, exploring the possibilities that becoming fully human requires more than material success alone. It's much bigger than that. Because the universe is not just a machine, it's also a mystery that holds a spirituality that we could all share in. And we were never meant to choose between science, the mind, and the soul in the first place. Once we accept that, our worldview, our view of ourselves and spirituality will be changed forever. And your new vision will be extraordinary. And I do believe this wholeheartedly, that a rising tide will lift all boats. So let's stop limiting each other's thinking and encourage, grow, and help each other see the amazing possibilities out there. We are obviously part of something bigger than ourselves. So let's tap into that and share the enlightenment, reject manipulation, and live your best life. If you want to learn more about spiritual science, there is a great book out there about this very subject by author Steve Taylor called Spiritual Science: Why Science Needs Spirituality to Make Sense of the World. Pick it up. Great place to start.
So, what did you think of this episode or any of the episodes? We would love to find out. And here is where to get a hold of the show and let us know. These are in the show notes, but as always, here they are. There is a Patreon support link in the show notes and on the NewVisionOldWays.com website that you can click on that will allow you to donate to the show and show your support. By donating what you can, it will allow us to book guests and cover costs. Anything will help. Cancel anytime. You can also message the show from each episode on your various platforms. Just look for the Send Us a Text Message link. If that doesn't work for you, you can email us at newvisionoldways@gmail.com. You can find us on what was Twitter, now X, at NewVision OldWay, no S on that one. Check the NewVision OldWays YouTube channel. Type in NewVision, one word, OldWays, one word, channel, and please subscribe. It is free and will show support for the show. It really means a lot and will help grow the show on YouTube. Find us on Facebook, NewVision OldWays, podcast. You should easily find us. And as a reminder, these are still growing platforms for us and expanding all the time, so we need your help to get the flow going with the community. And last but not least, if you can do me a huge favor and subscribe to us, like us, follow us, leave a review on whatever platform you found us on, that would be so appreciated. That will also help secure guests that we will be booking in the future. So, here we are, Season 7. We have a lot to cover, so thank you for listening. We can't wait to get your input, and I also can't wait until we get together for the next episode of NewVision OldWays. Until then, stay true to yourself, stay informed, and stay empowered.
But the most important thing is...
This episode and all the episodes of NewVision OldWays podcast have been written, engineered, and produced by Tony Marinaccio and TKM Productions.